You never expect oppression to come dressed in designer clothes and a polite smile. But sometimes, the most ruthless rejections come from people who believe their wealth makes them superior to you. For Maya Carter, this lesson came on a rainy Tuesday, in a crowded cafe, when she encountered people who didn't want to share their space with a black woman who walked differently. It was an incredible moment, one that is very hard to forget. The storm started without warning. Maya was returning to campus after her physical therapy appointment when the sky opened up. Within seconds, she was soaked to the bone. The rain drenched her jacket, her backpack, her jeans, everything. Maya, 20 years old, had very dark skin, naturally curly hair styled in short protective coils, and eyes that held both fierce determination and a weariness that seemed to run deep in her bones. She was a third-year student studying social services at the state university, maintaining a 3.7 GPA while working part-time and coping with the constant challenges that came with her prosthetic leg. Despite her young age, Maya had faced all of life's harsh realities. Yet despite all the adversity, Maya never had a single negative thought. Maya's prosthetic leg was functional but basic. It was the kind of prosthesis that her insurance barely covered after her accident 2 years ago. A drunk driver who ran a red light had taken away her athletic scholarship, her track career, and the ease of movement she had taken for granted. Now every step required conscious effort, and rainy weather made the prosthetic uncomfortable, sometimes even painful. Walking with the prosthetic was very difficult for her. As it rained, she saw Corner Brew Cafe. Warm light spilled from the windows. People had flocked inside to take shelter. Maya entered the door, water dripping from her clothes, and her prosthesis making soft clicking sounds on the tile floor. Conversation stopped. Everyone turned their heads to look at Maya. The cafe was full. Every table was occupied by well-dressed white patrons, businessmen with laptops, wealthy women with designer handbags, college students from the expensive private university on the other side of town. The kind of people who came to Corner Brew for a $7 latte and Instagram aesthetics. Of course, Maya's presence there was a bit of an oddity to these people. Maya stood trembling just inside the entrance, water pooling around her feet. She desperately searched for an empty chair. There were none. She approached the nearest table. 2 white women wearing expensive sportswear, perfect makeup and jewelry more expensive than Maya's tuition for a semester. "Excuse me, is this seat free?" Maya asked. She was very polite and courteous. One woman's eyes drifted from Maya's face to her prosthetic leg, and lingered there with barely concealed disgust. "We're saving this spot for someone," she replied, but that wasn't true. They just didn't want Maya there. The seat next to them was clearly empty, with no jacket on it. No one was coming. Maya tried the next table. A white man wearing a 3-piece suit was sprawled across a table for 4, papers scattered everywhere. "Sir, could I—" Before she could finish, he interrupted. "Private study area," without looking up. "You'll have to find another place," he added. A group of female students sitting at another table started filming with their phones, whispering and giggling. Maya heard some of their words. "Why did she come here? Those legs are so weird. She probably can't even get coffee," they were saying. This upset Maya. One girl spoke loudly enough for Maya to hear. "Doesn't she have anywhere else to go? This is a nice place," she said. This ordinary cruelty hit her like a physical blow. Maya had encountered racism before, microaggressions, coded language, suspicious looks in stores. But this overt rejection, this chorus of wealthy white people refusing to share the same space with her, wounded her more deeply than she had expected. Her eyes scanned the room once more. Everyone had turned their faces away. Every table had suddenly become full or reserved. The message was clear. "You don't belong here." Then Maya saw him. In the back corner, squeezed behind a support beam at the smallest table, sat a black man. He was alone, sipping his coffee, a worn notebook open in front of him. The table was in the worst spot, next to the restroom, next to the drafty back door, a light flickering above his head. It was a place no one wanted. He was the only person who didn't stare at her judgmentally or film her with mocking amusement. He seemed absorbed in his writing, unaware of the drama unfolding. Maya walked toward him, her prosthesis clicking with every step. In the hostile silence, the sound seemed impossibly loud. As she got closer, she could see him more clearly. He was a man in his 40s, very dark-skinned, with graying temples and deep eyes that showed he had lived through hardship. He wore a simple flannel shirt and worn jeans. Everything about him reflected a modest life, but also a quiet dignity. He certainly wouldn't bother Maya. She thought she could sit next to him. "Excuse me, sir?" Maya said, her voice trembling despite her efforts to remain calm. "I'm sorry to bother you, but may I sit here until the rain stops?" she asked politely. The man looked up. His eyes met Maya's. He hadn't looked down to examine her prosthesis, hadn't scrutinized her suspiciously, but simply recognized her as a human being. "Of course you can sit here," he said, his voice warm and unhurried. He immediately began gathering his papers. "Actually, you know what? You deserve the best seat," he said. He stood up and pointed to the chair further away from the draft, the one with better cushions. Then he crossed over and sat down in the worst chair, the one near the toilet, the one with the wobbly leg. Maya froze, unprepared for such kindness after such cruelty. You don't have to do this," she wanted to say. But she was also a little grateful for this gesture. "Please, sit down," he said gently. "You're soaking wet. Let me get you something warm. Coffee? Tea?" the man asked. I don't have much money right now," Maya replied. "It's on me. What would you like?" the man asked again, politely. The compassion in his voice broke something inside Maya. The tears she was trying to hold back began to blur her vision. "Hot chocolate? If it's not too much trouble?" she requested. "Coming right up," said the man, walking toward the counter and leaving Maya alone at the table. As she sat carefully, adjusting her prosthesis under the table, she felt the weight of their gazes. The wealthy white customers who had rejected her were now watching this interaction with expressions ranging from discomfort to contempt. Everyone in the cafe except that man made her feel uncomfortable. The businessman who had declared his booth a work area was looking at her, his face flushed. The members of the sorority had stopped filming, their previous mocking attitude replaced by uncertainty. The women who had reserved the seats were whispering anxiously to each other. The black man returned with 2 cups, hot chocolate with chocolate cream for Maya, black coffee for himself. Without asking, he had added chocolate chips to Maya's drink, a small gesture that somehow added more meaning to the drink. "I'm Marcus," he said, sitting down in the chair, which was worse than the one he had complained about. "Marcus Griffin." He was very polite to Maya. "Maya Carter," she replied. "Nice to meet you, Maya," said Marcus. He took a sip of his coffee. "Are you going to State University?" he asked. Maya nodded, wrapping her cold hands around the warm cup. "Junior year. Social work," she said. "That's important work. It takes a special kind of person to choose a career helping others," Marcus said. They sat in silence for a while. Around them, the energy of the cafe had changed. Conversations started up again, but they were quieter, more measured. The comfortable ruthlessness had been replaced by something uncomfortable, perhaps awareness, perhaps embarrassment. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said softly. "Why does everyone," she said, gesturing toward the crowded cafe. Marcus considered the question thoughtfully. "My wife used to say that how we treat people when no one is forcing us reveals our true character. You needed a seat. I had a seat. That's all." She said that. Maya asked. A momentary flicker of pain crossed his face. "She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer," Marcus said. The loss of his wife had affected him deeply. "I'm so sorry," Maya replied. She wanted to share Marcus's pain. "Thank you," said Marcus. "She taught me so much before she left, especially about kindness, about seeing people as people first, everything else second." Maya looked at her prosthesis. "Most people see that first, then they see my skin. Then if I'm lucky, they finally see me," she said. "I know, and that says everything about them. Nothing about you," said Marcus. These words had an unexpected power. For 2 years Maya had internalized every glance, every rejection, every small act of aggression as proof of her own inadequacy. But Marcus was right. The problem wasn't her leg, or her race. The problem was people who chose judgment over humanity. "How did it happen?" Marcus asked gently, nodding toward her prosthesis. "If I may ask," he added. "Car accident, 2 years ago." Maya's voice was steady. She was used to telling this story over and over. "A drunk driver ran a red light. I was going to be an athlete in college. I had a full scholarship to a state university. After the accident, everything ended," she said. "You lost a lot," Marcus replied. He wanted to share Maya's pain. At least he was empathizing. "Yes, I lost my scholarship. I lost my athletic career. I lost my identity for a while. It took me a year to reapply to university. I was finally accepted as a regular student, this time without a scholarship. I work part-time, I take out loans." She took a sip of hot chocolate. "But I'm here, I'm still standing. So you know what I mean," she said. Maya had probably opened up for the first time in a long time. Marcus smiled at her little joke. "You're doing more than just standing. You're building a future by helping others. That takes real strength," he said, actually wanting to lift Maya's positive energy. "Some days it doesn't feel like strength. Some days it feels like barely surviving." Maya surprised herself with her honesty. Marcus's quiet presence made her feel vulnerable. They talked for over an hour. Marcus told stories about his late wife Monique and how her compassion had shaped him. He talked about the small cafe he once owned in this neighborhood, which he had to close due to rent increases and corporate competition. He recounted the story of his son David, who was studying engineering on the other side of the country on a hard-earned scholarship. Both sides understood each other. At least they could empathize. Maya recounted her struggles, the stairs, the difficulty accessing campus buildings, the financial stress of medical bills, the exhaustion of constantly having to prove her worth to people who had already decided she had none. With Marcus, she didn't have to put on a show of strength or hide her vulnerability. It was nice to be able to talk openly with him about everything. What neither of them noticed was that an elderly white woman sitting 2 tables away was watching their entire interaction with intense attention. Eleanor Ashford had been there before Maya arrived, sitting with her untouched coffee, her expensive clothes and jewelry, marking her as someone from a very different economic world. Eleanor had come to Corner Brew on purpose. For over 6 months she had been searching for a certain someone, not a name, but a quality, character, honesty, the kind of kindness that exists without expecting anything in return. And in the last hour, watching Marcus Griffin give up his better seat to someone else, buy a stranger hot chocolate, and show respect to someone the whole cafe had rejected, she had found exactly what she was looking for. Eleanor slowly stood up, picked up her designer bag, and approached their table. "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but may I join you for a moment?" Marcus and Maya exchanged bewildered looks. Marcus pointed to an empty chair. "Of course, ma'am." Eleanor sat down with the careful sensitivity of someone whose body was aged but whose mind was still sharp. "My name is Eleanor Ashford, and I need to make a rather unusual confession to you." She took a leather folder from her bag and placed it on the table. "Mr. Griffin, I've been observing you for about 6 months. I realize that sounds rather creepy, but I assure you my intentions are entirely benevolent." Marcus's expression shifted from welcoming to wary. "You've been observing me? Why?" "Because my foundation is looking for someone. Someone with genuine character, someone who does good without seeking recognition." Eleanor opened the folder and showed the photos. Marcus helping his elderly neighbors with their grocery shopping, Marcus paying for a stranger's medication at the pharmacy, Marcus volunteering at a homeless shelter. "We've been following you since a former customer of your closed cafe contacted us. They told us that even though you could barely pay the rent, you never turned anyone away, that you gave away more food than you sold, that you lost everything because you couldn't say no to people in need." Marcus leaned back, clearly uncomfortable. "I don't understand what you want from me. I want to give you your cafe back," Eleanor said simply. "The Ashford Foundation specializes in supporting individuals who demonstrate exceptional community service. We purchased the building that housed your old cafe. We want to renovate it and give it back to you. No rent, no mortgage, completely free. It will be yours." An absolute silence fell over the table. Maya's eyes widened. Marcus seemed to have stopped breathing. "This, I can't accept," Marcus began. "You can and you will," Eleanor said gently but firmly. "But there's more. We also want to build a community center next to the cafe. A place that serves people in need. Vocational training, counseling, accessibility resources, educational support. And we want you to run both businesses." She turned to Maya. "And Ms. Carter, I heard you said you lost your athletic scholarship. The Ashford Foundation also offers educational grants. If you're interested, we'd like to cover the remaining tuition. Additionally, once the community center opens, we'd like to offer a paid internship focused on accessibility advocacy and youth services." Maya couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. "Why?" Marcus finally managed to speak. "Why us? Why now?" Eleanor's expression softened. "Because 20 minutes ago, in a cafe full of privileged people, I watched them refuse to help someone in desperate need. I watched them judge, mock, and reject a young woman because of her appearance and her disability. But you didn't hesitate. You gave her your better seat. You got her something to drink. You treated her with respect. That's the person I was looking for." She reached out and shook Marcus's hand. "There are many people in the world with money, Mr. Griffin. But there is a great need for people of character. You have something you cannot buy with your money, and I want to help you share that with your community." Around them, the cafe fell silent again. But this time the energy was different. The girls filming Maya looked shocked. The businessman who had claimed the workspace stared at his laptop, his face pale. The women who had lied about the reserved seat had quietly left. But Maya no longer cared about them. She looked at Marcus, who had tears in his eyes, and Eleanor, the founder of the foundation established to recognize the often overlooked kindness. 3 months later, Corner Brew reopened. The renovated space was larger and brighter, but it retained its modest warmth. The adjacent community center offered free services focused on accessibility, job training, and support for young people. Marcus managed both with the same gentle competence he had shown that rainy afternoon. Maya worked as the center's accessibility coordinator while completing her degree, with her tuition fully covered. Her prosthetic leg, once a source of shame, became a powerful symbol of resilience that inspired the young people she served. The grand reopening drew significant media attention. Local and national media reported on the story of the black man who had lost everything but never his kindness, and the black student who was rejected at a cafe filled with wealthy white people but found help from the one person everyone else ignored. The video taken that day, not by the mocking girls but by another customer, showed Maya's rejection and Marcus's compassion. The video was viewed over 15 million times. The comments section became a referendum on privilege, racism, discrimination against the disabled, and choosing to be human. The girls faced intense backlash. 2 were expelled from the sorority. All were scrutinized on social media, forcing them to confront their cruelty in the public eye. The businessman lost his job after his company saw footage of his dismissive attitude. The employer's statement was clear: "We do not employ individuals whose personal values conflict with our commitment to honor and respect." The women who lied about the reserved seat issued insincere public apologies. Eleanor's foundation responded, "Character doesn't emerge when we're comfortable. Character is revealed when kindness comes at a cost." But Marcus and Maya didn't focus on punishment. They were building something transformative. 6 months after reopening, Maya graduated with highest honors. She received job offers from major organizations but chose to stay full-time as Director of Inclusive Services at the community center. "You gave me a place when no one else would," she told Marcus. "Now I want to make sure everyone has a place to sit." Together they developed programs specifically for disabled youth, youth of color facing systemic barriers, and youth leaving foster care due to age. The center became a community-based support model that recognized the value of the individual regardless of circumstances. Eleanor visited regularly, always quietly. She would sit in the corner where Marcus had sat on that rainy day and watch the kindness multiply. "Over the years I've funded dozens of projects," she told Marcus during a visit. "I've built libraries, funded research, supported schools. But this transforms people from the inside out." This is the continuation of Monique's legacy. A year after that rainy afternoon, the cafe held an anniversary celebration. Community members, organizational partners, and people the center had helped gathered to celebrate the special day. Maya stood at the microphone, her prosthesis visible beneath her professional skirt, no longer hidden, displayed with quiet pride. "A year ago, I walked into this cafe during the storm. I was cold, wet, and desperate. Almost everyone here rejected me. They saw my skin, they saw my prosthesis, and they decided I wasn't worthy of their kindness." Her voice was steady and strong, but one man, one person, said I deserved the best seat. He didn't know me. He didn't know I could repay him. He just saw someone in need and helped. He looked at Marcus. That moment changed everything, not because of the hot chocolate or the chair, but because someone saw my humanity first, then my differences. That recognition reminded me of my own worth. And now, every day, we work to pass that on to others. She pointed to the wall covered with photos, the more than 400 people the center served. These faces exist because Marcus Griffin chose kindness over convenience. Because Eleanor Ashford realized that character matters more than anything. Because sometimes a single choice, a moment of humanity, can ripple out forever. The applause was sincere and long, but the real victory wasn't recognition. It was the work done every day to ensure everyone who walked through the door found dignity, resources, and hope. After the celebration ended and the crowd dispersed, Marcus and Maya stood together in the quiet cafe. The rain had started again, this time lightly, tapping rhythmically on the windows. "Have you ever wondered what would have happened if you had said no?" Maya asked. Marcus thought, "Sometimes I do, but Monique used to say we can't control the outcomes of our kindness. We just do good and trust it will turn into something good." "All of this happened." "No," Marcus corrected gently. "You did. I gave you a seat, you built a career, created programs, helped hundreds of people, all because of you. We built this together. You, me, Eleanor. Everyone who believes that kindness can change the world." They paused in comfortable silence, watching the rain wet the windows. Outside, somewhere, someone else was caught in the storm. Someone else was being rejected, judged, dismissed. And maybe, just maybe, someone would offer them a seat, because that's how change happens. Not with perfect people or grand gestures, but with small moments. A seat offered, dignity recognized, humanity chosen over prejudice. One by one, Marcus stroked his wedding ring, thinking of Monique. Monique was right. Kindness was contagious. It multiplied. That rainy afternoon when Maya asked if he wanted to sit down, Marcus could have said no, like everyone else, but he said yes. And that yes changed their lives and the lives of hundreds of others. The members of the girls' club learned a lesson that social media would not let them forget. The businessman found another job, but never regained his reputation. The women with designer handbags became symbols of everyday cruelty in a video that disturbed them. But Marcus and Maya weren't thinking about them. They were thinking about tomorrow, about the next person who would walk through their doors needing help. Because ultimately, that was the real victory. Not to take revenge on the oppressors, but to build something so beautiful that oppression could not survive in its presence. To create a space where honor is assumed, value is accepted, and everyone deserves the best seat regardless of race, ability, or circumstances. The rain continued. The cafe lights glowed warmly. Inside, two black people who had met during the storm continued to turn small acts of kindness into lasting change. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is offer someone a seat when the world tells them to stand outside. Sometimes choosing humanity over comfort is revolutionary. And sometimes a moment, a choice made to see someone's worth can ripple out forever, changing lives you'll never meet, transforming a world that desperately needs to be reminded that everyone, absolutely everyone, is worthy of honor.